Now, this week, Nigeria held up a mirror to itself. And depending on where you stood or stand, what you saw was either ambition, anxiety, or avoidance. As always, I would like to start with the numbers. President Bola Tinubu presented a 58.18 trillion naira budget for the 2026, promising a fiscal discipline as well as consolidation of reforms, and at the end, well, again, an end to the bad habit of rolling unfinished budgets into the next year. On paper, it sounds very decisive, but budgets at the end of the day are not speeches. They are contracts with reality. And the real question is not how big the budget is. It is whether the revenue or the revenue assumptions can survive oil volatility, like weak tax collection and a struggling economy. Nigeria has a long history of budgets being passed late, implemented slowly, and funded partially. I mean, you can say the same for the 2025 budget, as the project on that budget is still yet to be fulfilled or done. So discipline is not about being declared, it's about being enforced. And if Nigerians will be watching whether this budget becomes a tool for delivery or, as usual, another document for archives. And then came the oil sector drama. Aliko Dangote went public with allegations against the petroleum regulators, particularly the boss at the helm of affairs. And what followed was very swift. I gotta give it to them, all right? Senior officials resigned, replacements were named, they were screened, new CEOs were confirmed, and one would say there was somewhat of accountability, so to speak. And others would say, like myself, I would say this is a classic case of institutional fragility. But this was never just about personalities. It exposed a deeper problem, a problem that many critics would say have always been there. A regulatory system that appears reactive, not predictable. And the knee-jerk reaction that we've seen both by the presidency as well as the Senate. And in an industry that is as crucial and very critical as our oil and gas sector, uncertainty is very expensive. Fuel pricing, supply stability, and investor confidence all suffer when governance looks personal rather than procedural. And one has to ask, after the resignation, what comes next? Anyway, away from that, there's also the matter of diplomacy. The Senate just confirmed 64 non-career and career ambassadors. Many of them, critics have said, are political appointees. And supporters say that loyalty in this matter is what has happened to the 64 persons that have now been named as ambassadors. And critics ask whether experience will matter in this situation, because diplomacy is not, to be honest, ceremonial. It is negotiation, it is credibility, and also long memory as well. Nigeria's envoys will now be judged not by who they know, but by what they deliver, which is trade, trust, and more importantly, influence. And then there's a signal from the almighty Washington, D.C., the United States, as the country have now imposed partial travel restrictions on Nigeria, citing security concerns and visa overstays. Now, this is not a ban in name, but it is one that will, in its full effect, would affect many students and professionals and even families as well. And so it raises uncomfortable questions about Nigeria's global image and its capacity to manage mobility, documentation, and more than ever, trust. The truth of the matter is, when you look at it and that mirror that's reflecting back at us, these stories are connected. And a country that is asking for investor confidence must show regulatory clarity. A country that is seeking global respect must show institutional seriousness. And a country proposing a record budget must prove it can execute and not just announce them. So, As always, Nigeria is not short of ambition. We've seen it so many times with our music, with our movies, and with the characters that we portray, like Ife Carter. Anyway, moving on. What it lacks is consistency, or better yet, follow through. So with a very lofty dreams like our budget, we're going to go behind the headlines as usual this week, and we'll ask the real questions, because that's where the real test lies. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, welcome to Breakfast Xtra. My name is Judith TV. It's good to be back. And of course, Mazino is here with us today. And a good morning, Mazino.
It's grand to have you back after my foray with two other ladies. Sorry, after, presenting the show with other colleagues. Judith, welcome back to our marriage.
Oh, man.
What did Kata Ife find into your monologue? I'm wondering. That buzz was big during the week, wasn't it?
Look, Mazino, we have a problem.
Tell me about it.
Look, we have a problem. Away from Dangote and, the oil bosses, there's also a case of brain rot that we've been seeing. And I just realized that we didn't discuss it. A young man who decided to live stream for views and sympathy, trying to kill himself.
Oh.
And then we're in trouble.
I believe so, but we're not in as bad trouble as what we face now with the panic that's being caused by the restrictions put on our heads by the U.S. government. When you come back home, we're going to talk about that here. Welcome back, by the way.
Thank you. And let's get started, shall we? Welcome to Breakfast Xtra.
Oh, good morning once again, and welcome to Breakfast Xtra, your weekend front row seats to the end of the world. No, it's your front row seats to stories shaping our lives, our economy, and our culture. On today's show, we delve into Nigeria's biggest conversations from the 2025 budget proposal, where questions around, funding gaps, delays, and also implementation risks are already stirring debates. To the oil sector, shake-up says Dangote's allegations trigger, resignations and also renewed scrutiny of regulation and also accountability. We also examine Nigeria's diplomatic standing, as 64 ambassadors are confirmed at a time the country faces fresh travel restrictions from the United States, of whom would like to think of themselves as the Almighty. Beyond policy and politics, we turn to the streets, and the people, labor unions across the country take a stand against rising insecurity, with Delta State joining nationwide protests as fear and frustration spread. And because Breakfast Xtra is not just about the hard news, we bring you color, creativity, and also culture. On Waka Waka World, Waka Waka Doctor steps into the hearts of Lagos, Nigeria, at Balogun Market, capturing the hustle, the humor, and the heartbeat of everyday commerce. How much of Nigeria do you know? Oh, welcome. On Creative Corner, we explore how Nigerian fabric are redefining festive expressions with a Christmas tree behind or design that blends tradition with bold creative imagination. So, insightful conversations, real stories, and the spirit of Nigeria all in one place here on Breakfast Xtra. Let's get into it, but not before I discuss with Judith here about our 64 confirmed nominees at a time when Nigeria is facing restrictions. You have such an increased diplomatic corps, and yet restrictions on, you're locking out your people, you're locking in your people while you're giving access to your diplomatic corps to go outside. Now, this I said from a couple of weeks ago.
Are they the ones who's locking their people in?
Well, this is it, yeah. First off, it's an examination to see how relevant our diplomatic corps is.
Okay.
Now, you've got these people who have been put in places by the government, say, okay, you have this, you have this, you have this. Thanks for your loyalty, by the way.
Yeah.
By the way, now let's see what they can do. And I'm taking a front row seat. I want to see exactly how this is going to pan out, because first off, you're not just locking us. It's also a test of Nigeria's credibility. It's a test of what our standing is out there, global standing. I want to see where this is going to go. It's a very bad time, especially now that it is dirty December. I mean, it is...
right.
I can't imagine how... It's already too late, quite frankly.
Right.
At this time last year, we were having a buzz in December, a buzz in Lagos. You can imagine the economy, how everything was buzzing. People were selling, people were making trade. But right now, it doesn't seem like that's happening.
So, as somebody who's partially participated in Dirty December against my will.
Dirty. You went on Jamaican on this one.
I keep saying dirty instead of dirty, yeah, right. And what's very interesting about it is that, to be fair, it has its hotspots, but this year seemed somewhat more curated as opposed to years prior where it was very much vibey. It went with the vibes and everyone was doing the thing. Now it's a lot more curated, and there's now, sports where there's an influx of the IJGBs, right?
But that's the thing. Where are the IJGBs? They're considering if I go to Nigeria, can I step back inside America?
Yeah, so
the visa restrictions it's affecting everything.
Right. So, and again, first of all, I'm going to say those who supported the campaign and the presidency ambition of President Trump and now are affected by this ought not to feel, because we told you this was coming. We already told you, it's happened, relax, hold your horses and enjoy it. But also what's most important that one has to factor here is that I don't think Nigeria is the problem. I think and when you look at the list, there's more to it than it just meets the eye. It's not a Nigeria problem, it's a sentimental problem, and it might just be a third world race power play problem here. Because if you have sent envoys to come and check whether or not there's genocide, if you checked all of that,
and you hit us with restriction.
Yeah, because when you look at all the countries, Nigeria has done incredibly well in contributing to US, whether it's their education, whether it's their corporate world. Nigerians in the diaspora, UK, Europe and US have done incredibly well in the medical sector, in the science and literature.
Minds.
Yeah, Nigerian minds. So I don't think this is not a Nigeria problem. This is a Trump administration problem. We saw it in his last administration, we see here. And it's a matter of race and a disdain for third world countries. That's how I see it.
Apparently you have no travel plans anytime soon.
I've already given up on years. Thank you.
Let's take a break. We might be bringing the papers in just a bit. Do stay with us. Welcome once again to Breakfast Extra.
Welcome back. We begin the hour officially with our big report for today. Now, we know that insecurity has continued to dominate national conversations, not just in government circles, but now on the streets as well. And across several states, members of the Nigeria Labour Congress have taken to peaceful protests, expressing growing frustrations over kidnappings of violent attacks and what they describe as a failure to protect lives and livelihoods. And so from Lagos to Rivers, Enugu, Ebonyi, and Delta State, labor unions say the cost of insecurity is no longer abstract. It is affecting workers directly, disrupting economic activity, and also deepening public fear.
In Delta State, the protest was held in Asaba, the state capital, as labor leaders joined their counterparts nationwide in demanding urgent action. Earlier in the week, our correspondent Austin Azu was on ground in Asaba, and he filed in this report. Let's take a look.
NLC in Delta State, in compliance with the national, are on the streets of Asaba protesting against insecurity. And of course, the procession took off from the Labour House, an onward movement through the various roads down to Government House to present their papers before the state governor.
The insecurity in this country is just too much. The most painful part of it was that a general was kidnapped and was killed. The Nigerian government did nothing about it. That's a shame to our country, Nigeria.
Because the insecurity all over is something we cannot take any longer. People no longer go to their farms to produce food for the masses. Children no longer go to school freely. Even we no longer sleep in our homes with our two eyes closed.
At Government House, Asaba, the union's position was presented by the council secretary, Acrobat Inakwore, before the state governor, who was represented by the chief of staff at Government House, Asaba, Johnson Erijo.
We know that Delta State is relatively what? Peaceful. But we cannot say we are accepted. We cannot say we are not being harassed and being kidnapped in our farms. Our future, our children, they can no longer go to school. We want security for our children.
We want security in our workplaces. We want security where we are at home.
The cost of
Responding to their demands, Erejo told the NLC members that their issues would be taken to the governor for consideration and onward transmission to the president to ensure citizens' welfare and security are guaranteed.
So like we have here in Delta State, the government is also working very hard with the federal government to ensure that your lives are secured. All of us. Because if there is no security, if there is no peace, there is no way that we can perform to deliver the dividend of democracy to you people. It is not just sufficient to pay workers. We agreed. To secure you people is the responsibility of government.
The NLC, after submitting their grievance, said they will observe to see how the government will take action to ensure that the welfare and security of Nigerians are safeguarded across the country. In Delta for News Central, Austin Azu.
Now, that report was filed earlier in the week by our correspondent, Austin Azu, and he joins us now virtually. Also joining is the chairman of the Nigeria Labour Congress in Delta State, Goodluck Ofobruku. Gentlemen, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let me start with you, Austin, because you filed in that report. Now, it's becoming very interesting here because when it comes to labor being involved here, it's no longer a security problem. The question is what happens when fear becomes a job description? You have to go to work with all of this fear and insecurity and all of that. Now, security is a federal constitution, and states, well, they are the ones who are facing these consequences. You know, human loss in life, also the economy as well. They can't go to work. So I'm wondering in Delta State what the peculiar nature of insecurity and how it affects the people is, or what is manifesting as. Austin. Austin, can you hear us?
Good morning, Zeno. Good morning, Judith.
Go ahead.
Of course, across Nigeria, insecurity. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Please confirm if you can hear me. Now, across Nigeria, insecurity has become a major challenge confronting Nigerians, and Delta State, as a state, are not exempted from what is happening in Nigeria. And in Delta State, for instance, you have so many insecurity that the residents of the state are grappling with. One of such is the issue of farmer headers clutch. Recently, about a few days ago at Kokori precisely, a young man was almost killed by suspected herdsmen at his farm. And not only that, in other places in Delta, you cannot go to your farms. And not only that, you cannot even travel to some places within the state because of the fear of these non-state actors. And hence, this protest. That's why the NLC in Delta State joined their counterparts in Nigeria to protest against this insecurity. And don't forget to that the primary purpose of government is to guarantee welfare and security of its citizens. But the residents of Delta State and precisely the workforce are no longer feeling the impact of government in terms of addressing these insecurity issues. In 2022 precisely, the anti-open grace law was passed and accepted by the state government. But up till now, the law has not been implemented in the state. You still see herders going about with their cattle across the states, going to people's farm to go and destroy it. And of course, the governor recently went to Brazil, where we are told that he went to understudy the ranching method over there. And in course of the presentation of the 2026 budget before the State House of Assembly, equally do mention that the state is going to go into ranching. And residents of the state, precisely the farmers, are looking forward to see how and when this thing is going to be implemented. And besides kidnapping orchestrated by the suspected herdsmen, there are other heinous crimes being committed in the state here. Issue of armed robbery, issue of crude oil theft, and so on and so forth. And of course, you know, crude oil theft is economic sabotage to our national development. And these are lots more that aggravated the angers of average Nigerians and average Deltans. that they have taken to the streets to protest against this incessant kidnapping, incessant killings for rituals, and insecurity in general within the state here. So it's a concern that everyone must rise up and speak against, and that is why the labor force at this point, they are very vocal about it, and they are calling on all well-meaning Nigerians to join the crusade and advocacy against this insecurity in our nation.
Right.
So back to you, Sino.
Yeah, let me come to the chairman here for the NLC, Delta chapter. Mr. Ofobruku, I do have to ask you, first of all, thank you so much for joining us and a very good morning to you. I want you to talk about, what spurred the NLC to decide to go on this nationwide strike and join other chapters, but most importantly, what immediate insecurity challenges do members of your Congress face as well?
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. We decided to draw government's attention to probably the negligence of their duty as is stated in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Section 14, subsection 2, which says the primary purpose of government is the security and welfare of the people. You are not unaware of what has been happening in Nigeria at 74 local government areas in Nigeria where bandits, ISWAP members, kidnappers have been on the loose, kidnapping every Nigerian, workers in particular. Because when you talk of workers, you talk with a sector. And these kidnappers, they demand huge ransom, sometimes up to 50 million, up to 100 million. And initially we kept quiet, thinking that government will do something about it. But government have been quiet. They have not been saying anything because they move around with protection. When I mean protection, they go about with policemen, DSS, and sometimes with military officers. But workers with their meager salaries cannot afford such protections. So we thought government would do something. But over the years, they have not been doing anything. They just pay lip service to security and do nothing. So when we had our National Executive Council meeting in Lagos about 2 weeks ago, we decided that we have to draw government's attention to the purpose why they were elected, which is the security and welfare of the people. In the 36 states, workers have been kidnapped, some have been killed. You are not unaware of what happened in Kebbi State recently, where the vice principal of a school was killed. Other workers were kidnapped. So if government is not doing anything about it, we have to draw their attention to it because we have lost our members, so many of them in their thousands. And that is why I say, let government do something. But there are even some of our health workers who work in hospitals and in remote areas. These bandits go there at night, kidnap the workers. In some cases, they rape the staffers that are there. And the government will just pay lip service. When we complain, they say, don't worry, we'll do something, don't worry, we'll do something. And they do nothing about it. So that was what spurred the Nigerian Labour Congress to say, no, enough is enough. It is good that you say you are building infrastructure here and there. But the primary purpose, which is the security and welfare of the people, must also be looked at. So that's why we said, no, let's take to the streets and draw government's attention so that if they fail to protect workers at their various places of work and also in their various communities, then we might escalate this matter to a higher level. You are not also unaware that the only thing a worker can do is to farm. Since our meager salaries are not enough to take care of our families, some of us are farmers. We do go to farms. But these bandits, these herdsmen, they have made our farms inaccessible to us.
Chairman.
So that is also a challenge. Yeah.
Chairman, So, Chairman, now, yes, the NLC has brought to the fore the tensions when it comes to the members and workers across Nigeria. But what exactly is the NLC asking? What are the demands? Is it better policing? Is it better intelligence? Is it decentralized security? I mean, security being a federal responsibility. Is the NLC asking for state policing, and is this going to help?
If you ask me whether state police will help, my personal opinion, I believe state police will help, because we have over 230 million Nigerians now, and if they are with what we hear about the number of police we have, about 300,000 to 400,000, it is not enough. But what the NSC as a body is asking is that government should provide protection for workers across the country. That government should provide protection for Nigerians across the country. The way they want to do it is their own business, because they have their own modus operandi. But what we say is that provide us with protection. We need protection to be able to do our jobs. Our families need protection for us to concentrate to do our job. Because if our families are targeted, there is no way we will have sound mind to do the job. So what we are asking is that we need protection. So if they on their own say, oh, there is inadequate security men, they want to improve on their intelligence or whatever, that is their business. It does not concern us. They know how to go about their jobs better than what we know. But what we know and what we believe in is that they have to provide protection for us. It is not nice that somebody will go to work, his office, where he's supposed to contribute to the development of his state, of this country, and he is kidnapped, he is asked to pay 100 million, and government will do nothing about it. For somebody who was kidnapped in his office, has to pay 100 million, maybe his family will now be looking for money here and there to raise ransom money. And when eventually, if they are able to pay the money and the person is released, government does nothing again. Next week, the bandits will come again and kidnap another set of workers. So that's why we are saying, no, government, you have to do something about this. In our homes, in our farms, in the streets, in the offices, we are not safe. It is not enough for you and your family members to be moving around with security personnel. They don't provide security for others. So what we are saying is that provide security. How you do it is your own business.
Right. Let me bring in Austin, as our correspondent, who was live during this demonstration by the NLC in Delta State. Now, we know that it was also, that demonstration was also spread across different chapters across Nigeria, both and the southwest as well as the eastern part of the country. But I do have to ask you about the mood during this exercise, and, you know, indigents and residents of Asaba, whether they also did come out, and whether security agents present, and did they meet with representatives of the NLC, and what was that the outcome like? Austin.
Okay, Judith, like what you rightly stated, the protest was exclusively for NLC members, and let me add this, that on the day of the protest here in Asaba precisely, the turnout was not quite encouraging compared to what they have been having over the years. But we don't know, maybe the chairman will be able to throw more light on that. But besides that as well, it was exclusively for the NLC members, and even some persons don't even know that the NLC were on that peaceful protest. And a lot of persons were going about their lawful duties and so on and so forth. But however, the residents of the state capital here are equally bearing the brunt of the insecurity, because they have loved ones in Asaba here and other parts of the state, and some across the country, and they're equally reading the papers, they're equally seeing what's happening on national TV about the insecurity. And most of them were quite happy that yes, that it's good that NLC is drawing attention towards this, these heinous crimes against humanity in our own country. But they equally want a situation whereby their voices will be heard, because since they are the workers, if they don't choose today, that the government will listen to them more. So attention is now on the government to see what is going to do with the protest that NLC has done already, the awareness, and going forward is that they will look forward to see if things will begin to unfold in terms of meeting with those concerns to design a roadmap and a framework to ensure that they're able to have a middle ground where farmers will be able to go to their farms and come back alive, workers will go to their offices and come back, and so on and so forth. So that is just how it is. So residents of the states, Asaba precisely, are quite hopeful that NLC have been able to write their message across and pass their voice and pass their messages across as well.
Yeah, but Austin, is that all? You've written your message and you sent it to the authorities. They've heard. Now, Chairman, you said something before. What normally happens is that there would be an instance of kidnapping, ransom would be paid, the person would be freed, and then that's all. The authorities do nothing. Next week again, there'll be another kidnapping. The same thing also seems to happen to protests in Nigeria. There'll be one protest this week, the protest will end, and then we'll hear nothing from it. So regarding this protest and the NLC's expressions and the demands that they've put forward, what has come out of it? Have the authorities said anything? What is going to happen now that they've made their expressions? What are we going to see the authorities do? Have they told what they are going to do expressively? Chairman, that's for you.
Okay, thank you very much. But yes, thank you very much. Before I answer your question, let me say that before we went on the streets to protest, the police had meetings with us. The DSS also had meetings with us, and they assured us that they are going to improve on their activities and try to secure lives and properties of workers across the country. And this time around, we are not on strike. We only decided that we should take to the street to protest. So we didn't close the system. That's why we just asked the unions, nominate 30 persons per union to come to the street to protest so that government business and private sector business can still continue. So if they were expecting the entire Asaba to close, that it was not possible because we were not on strike. So that's why only a handful of workers came to the street. It was to pass our message. Now, coming to your own question, the Progressive Governors Forum, they met with the leadership of Labour to try to convince Labour of what they are doing and tried to convince us not to take to the street to protest, but we still went to the street to draw the attention of government. Then, the night before that protest, the president and commander-in-chief of this country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, met with the leadership of Labour. He told Labour what his government has been doing and what they will continue to do to try to protect the lives and property of every Nigerian. Because we were not convinced, we still took to the street on Wednesday to protest and draw their attention. Now, in the course of the meeting, we agreed that we are going to meet again with government in January after the holiday period to look at what they are doing, suggest ways of improvement, and if possible, help them to look into this area of insecurity that they have not been looking at. And it is not only the federal government, but also the state governors as well. So we have agreed to meet again in January. Now, if we meet in January, we are going to chart the way forward on how better the government and security agencies can protect workers and all Nigerians in this country. If we are satisfied, we will treat our sword. If we are not satisfied, then we are going to increase the tempo by protesting more and, if possible, escalating it probably into a full-blown strike. Because like I said earlier, it is not nice for workers to go to their offices, they are kidnapped and they are asked to pay ransom in millions, and nothing is done about it. So we will meet again in January to assess the situation and chart the way forward with government and the security agencies. That was the agreement.
And we wait until that meeting happens in January. Chairman, I must say thank you so much for coming by and just having this chat with us. And also to you, Austin Azu. I mean, I do have to ask, is the cheer for Christmas, the festivities, is it up in the air now? Can you smell Christmas, Austin?
Merry Christmas, Judith. We are looking forward to get your chickens and your rice. Please send them across the Delta. Thank you.
Look, Austin, all this way you're doing, you're just going around in circles. I'm on the next flight to Asaba, trust me. Well, gentlemen, once again, thank you so much, and compliments of the season to both of you. Here's where we pause on this discussion here for a big report. Let's switch gears now to bring you a big story, Mazzino.
Well, let's talk big story this time. Now, this focuses on one of the most disruptive moments in Nigeria's oil industry in 2025, and dare I say dramatic as well. Last week, billionaire businessman Aliko Dangote made serious public allegations against the Nigerian midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory authority, accusing some leaders of incompetence and misconduct that he says have deepened fuel scarcity and worsened price volatility. Now, this is unlike what we've seen Dangote do from before. This went, most people would say, personal. The fallout was swift. Top executives at NMDPRA and the Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission resigned amidst mounting pressures.
Now, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, accepted the leadership changes and named replacements, while the Senate has now confirmed new CEOs for both the agencies. Critics say the episode exposes somewhat deeper structural problems in Nigeria's oil sector, and supporters argue that the shakeup was overdue. And so to help us to unpack what this means for markets, policies, and everyday Nigerians, we're going to speak to two experts, one in energy data and then the other in public policy. First, let's bring in our analyst, our second guest, Ikenna Okonkwo, who is a data integrity lead at SBM Intelligence. Again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us this morning, and a very good morning to you.
Judith, and good morning, Zeno. I think I got your name right.
Yeah, Zeno's fine.
He actually likes when they call him Zeno.
It's all right.
Let's start with the basics, shall we? And let's just set the tone for this discussion. So much has happened this week when it comes to both agencies, their resignation, a new appointment, and also the allegations. All happened within a span of 5 days. I do have to ask. It all happened so swiftly, but let's start from the basics. What specifically were the allegations that was levied against engineer Farouk Ahmed by Dangote? What was the main accusations against the regulatory authorities?
I think if we look beyond the accusation of corruption against Ahmed Farouk, I think the key dispute between Dangote and his refinery and the NMDPRA has to do with the issuance of import licenses. So Dangote has always claimed that the NMDPRA has a statutory duty to encourage local refineries. On the other hand, NMDPRA are also looking at the point of view of they do not want a monopoly and they want to ensure supply, especially during the festive season where the demand for petroleum products increases. Now, Dangote has always claimed that his refinery will be able to guarantee supply. But the NMDPRA has had its worries, especially given certain things. For example, the Dangote's refinery is a single train refinery. Now, what does that mean? A single train refinery basically means that it has just one process. It's just the refining process is a single process where the crude oil goes through the refining process. So it's just a single train. And that is a problem because if there is an issue with any part of that system, the whole thing has to shut down. Now, in December, Dangote refinery announced maintenance of its RFCC unit. Now, the RFCC unit is a unit that refines the heavy oil aspect of crude oil. And that refining process, I don't want to go into the technical details, but that refining process of the heavy oils ensures that you get the maximum amount of petroleum products from crude. So this maintenance of this RFCC unit is going to last from December into January next year. So NMDPRA is saying, look, in order to ensure supply, we're going to open up import licenses. And that has been a major source of dispute between Dangote and NMDPRA. With Farouk, with Farouk Ahmed, we remember that Dangote's issues with him had started a year ago in July 2024, where Farouk said that the diesel that Dangote that was coming out of the refinery was of low quality. And Dangote had to, I remember he had to bring in the press, and he did a live test. And it showed that his diesel was at a quality that was suitable for Nigerian use. So I would say that this escalation, because this is an escalation, was Dangote deciding to take the gloves off. And he took the gloves off in a way that I would say he understands Nigerians in a sense. He understands that we typically tend to listen when we hear allegations like this. And I guess that was why he came up with those, with the allegations and came up with those numbers. We can't really say how true or how false it is. But I think as Nigerians, I think we should focus on the facts. Or the
I think I understand what you're saying. I think I understand what you're saying. Nigerians like drama. It's only when we hear drama, that's when we pay attention. So Dangote had to come down that low. But then again, is Dangote a saint? Is he the savior? Let's remember, he's a businessman. He shook the entire sector with those allegations. He caused resignations. Now, the question is, how can one man have so much power to be able to shake an entire sector? And what is the end game for Dangote? Is he the savior that he is positioning himself to be? How does this affect long-term governance of the oil sector in Nigeria from here on?
I think the thing to realize is that Dangote is a businessman. And what is most important to him is his profits, his margins. And in everything that he's doing, he is trying to guarantee the market for his refinery. NMPDRA and I would say the Nigerian government and the Nigerian regulator, their primary mandate is to ensure supply. And I would add that for the Nigerian, who we can say is an observer, but we have a stake in this, for the Nigerian, I think our primary obligation or our primary interest should be, first of all, petroleum supply. We do not want to be in fuel queues this Christmas, and also at the optimal price, because that is what affects us, the price of petroleum. And we shouldn't take any sides. I don't think the Nigerian public should take any sides, or should be on the side of our pocket. And like I said, this, at the bottom of the dispute between Dangote and the regulators, is a dispute on supply, pricing, and who gets to supply petroleum or petroleum products to Nigerians.
Talking about pricing and supply and distribution. I mean, from your data, and you're looking at Dangote, mind you, there are plans for Dangote. Also, I hear that the refinery might be going public in 2026 next year, and so there's so much that is hindering on this refinery in terms of Nigeria's Commonwealth, right? But away from that, one has to look at the data. From your data, from your analysis, on the data that is on petroleum supply, pricing, distribution, and support, do you see, the idea that a mismanagement that has now played at a regulatory body like the upstream and downstream sector, do you see that it has affected, and do you think that with this change, we're going to see a headway, so to speak? in pricing, supply, and distribution?
I don't think the change in leadership is going to change much. So the NMDPRA releases a fact sheet every month talking about the state of petroleum supply, petroleum product supply in the country. And in November, at least one of the key results that it brought out in November is that the supply for November for petrol, PMS, was 71.5 million liters a day. Of that 75 million liters a day, 19.5 million liters was supplied by local refineries. And the majority of local supply is from Dangote refinery. So 19.5 million liters were supplied a day, on average, was supplied by local refineries, specifically Dangote refinery, in November. The demand for petroleum products in Nigeria for November was 56 million liters a day. So it is very, very clear that Dangote refinery alone is unable to meet Nigerian demand. And the demand for November, the demand for petrol for November was an increase from October, and we believe that is also going to increase in December, especially as Christmas comes and people travel. So I don't think the leadership is going to change the underlying issues. Now, Dangote always claims that his refinery has storage. So, for example, he claims that at this point in December, as his RFCC unit is closing, he has 1.5 billion liters in storage. And 1.5 billion liters will supply the country for, I would say, about 20 to 30 days. So he says he can guarantee supply for 20 to 30 days. But NMDPRA are saying that, look, we're going to grant import licenses to cover for that supply. So I don't think the change in leadership is going to change much in the way NMDPRA has been running things, and especially in its dealings with Dangote refinery. What I feel will just happen is that, okay, Dangote has knocked off an enemy. He has knocked that enemy off the board.
Off the chessboard, very interesting. But I'm still very concerned about his visible impact inside of the sector now. Standing so big and tall, everybody's looking at Dangote as that savior I mentioned from before. But who stands to gain more? Is this going to affect the common man positively? And how does it affect the regulatory framework that we currently have? Is it going to break it down? Is it going to cause a restructuring?
I do not think that the current allegations and the current issues would lead to a serious change in regulation. A lot of what is happening is based off the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, which created the NMDPRA. And the NMDPRA, well, both of them, the NMDPRA and Dangote on one hand and on the other hand, have always claimed, have always used the PIA to justify some of their actions. According to Dangote, the PIA guarantees or supports local refining, while for the NMDPRA, the PIA kicks against monopoly. So most of NMDPRA's arguments have been against monopoly. And if we look at the refining sector in Nigeria, it is clear that for local refining, Dangote has a monopoly. Now, will that be a good thing for the country? It is going to be very, very difficult to say. We can already look at other sectors where Dangote has a monopoly. We can look at cement and cement prices currently. It is clear that Nigerians buy cement at a higher rate than foreign cement. So the question is, will it get to that point if Dangote secures a monopoly on petroleum products in Nigeria? Remember, there was a 15% tariff that was proposed and withdrawn by the government. And that 15% tariff on imported petroleum products was ostensibly to protect local refining. And a lot of all these things point to the accusation that people have made against Dangote, that Dangote tends to stay in industries where he's guaranteed some sort of monopoly, especially by regulation. And personally, I don't think that it's a good thing for the country. Monopolies do not help the economy, do not help the common man. What typically helps the common man is where there is competition that allows for the best price for a product, which is what favors us as Nigerians.
And Ikena, that's exactly what I'm saying. You just hit all the buzzwords there. You mentioned monopoly, and then you also brought in the instance of Dangote cement and how actually Nigerians are paying more for cement. And I'm wondering if this is not the same thing we're seeing here, where Dangote is actually trying to get that monopoly, and down the road it might not be to the benefit of the, average Nigerian when it comes to fuel. And the NMDPRA, where does it fall in regulating such a monopoly here now?
But when we're saying monopoly, right, but there's no other refineries as well, right? So a monopoly will be a case where, there are other competitors, but he seems to have controlled the market. But there's no other competitors, right? And one might say cement is a lot more different in terms of BOA, there's BOA, there used to be Unisem and the rest, right? And we have an abundance of limestone, which is a key ingredient in cement. And so for the case of the refinery, it's a much more peculiar case. I think that's my own argument here. And so would you now say that it's a protectionist approach by the president or by this administration to protect the refinery, or is it truly indeed monopoly, given there are really no competitors at this point?
I guess for the Nigerian government, the challenge would be to balance supporting local refining and also ensuring supply at the optimal price. And I think in the long term, I believe that what would help would be the emergence of competitive refineries in the country that would meet the gap. Remember, I pointed out that there is a almost 30 to 40 million liter per day gap that Dangote's refinery is not meeting at the moment. Yes, Dangote has plans to further increase the capacity of the refinery by building another train. So that would end his dependence on a single train refinery. So there are plans to do that, but that won't happen in 2028. What would actually be good for the country would be the emergence of other refineries of a similar size. I guess there are plans for some of them in other parts of the country, but that is what would ensure that, it's not just one giant refinery that has a monopoly on refining. And there's also the fact that even if we're able to cover local demand, we can also export to our neighboring West African countries or around the world. So these are things that the country can look forward to. And I would say the government and through the regulators should encourage, should strike that balance and encourage local producers, but also to ensure that the Nigerian doesn't suffer under the lack of or the unavailability of petroleum products.
I do have to also come back to those allegations that was levied against Engineer Farouk Ahmed by Alhaji Aliko Dangote. Very heavy allegations. And now that he's resigned and both upstream and downstream bosses have now resigned, they will now see new appointments and confirmations. Does it end there, right? Because someone brought to my attention that these allegations actually sprung up about 6 to 7 months ago and somewhat died, right? And there's been constant and worrying concerns about accountability and transparency when it comes to the finances of the entirety of our oil sector. Do you think that this will just stop at a resignation? Do you think that the ICPC and other craft agencies will go in and probe this situation? And if he's found guilty on these allegations, the right punishments will be meted out?
Well, this question can be answered if we look at precedents. What has happened in the past, especially when you already have the person resigning. So if he has resigned, the typical thing, and this is what I expect will happen, is that, okay, yes, a report has been made to ICPC, but now that he has resigned and is out of the picture, it is likely that it will die down. It will die down, because that's typically what happens in corruption cases like this. It will die down unless there is somebody who is out to follow through. And given how much bad blood has flowed between the two of them, it is likely that he could get that far. But we shall see.
Only time will tell.
Let me bring in a lighter bit to the conversation here. I don't know if you agree with me, but if you look at the situation, Dangote is responsible for most of the traffic jam we're having in Lagos in December at this point. Why? Because of
not the IJGBs?
Because no. There are no IJGBs. It's because of the selective application of the distribution. You find certain fueling stations actually applying this reduced rate, and you find motorists all thronging to these fueling stations, and that's at the end of it. Take a look the next time you're in a traffic jam. There's always a fueling station applying that new price that's causing that traffic. And
really?
Yes, Judith. Yeah, you haven't seen it?
No.
You can. Next time you're going to go look for fuel.
Typically MRS stations. If you
have
an MRS station.
Yeah, there's a MRS right across from me, but that's not the cause of traffic in my end.
Trust me, but take a critical look at it. You will find that this is actually what's happening. Now, I'm wondering the broader implication of that. If distributors start selecting where to apply these, how it affects states, how it affects regions. Are we going to see any drastic change in consumer behavior or maybe stability of the product? What do you think, Ikenna?
Like I said, Dangote is a businessman. It is unlikely that the reduced price is going to continue for a long time, because this is he was able to reduce the price because in November, anticipating the shutdown of his RFCC units, he ramped up production and built a stockpile or a reserve of, like I said, 1.5 billion liters. And in doing that, he was able to reduce the price in order to price out imported petroleum products. So the question is, how long can that last? How long can you hold on for? Because this is something that he's going to be doing to a large extent at a loss or not at the profit that he would want. And like I said, Dangote is a businessman. He is interested in his margins. So I would love to see how long this would last, but I do not think it will last past the end of this year.
Really?
Well, hey.
I thought you would say like the first quarter of 2026, but hey, listen, what do I know?
Judith, let me tell you something. He just said it. He's a businessman.
Yeah, he's a capitalist.
Everything was planned, including the allegations at this time when sentiments are high regarding Christmas and prices and lowering prices.
We'll
get people on your side.
This is so heavy conspiracy.
I'm more interested in the drama at this point. Ikenna, thank you very much for joining us for Breakfast Extra to discuss this. It's a very heavy topic that everybody's talking about, and you've shed more light on it with your expertise. Thank you very much, Ikenna.
Thank you, Ikenna Okonkwo. He is the data lead there at SBM Intelligence. And Dangote might just be the cause of traffic. Who knows, according to the museum. Let's go to a short break, shall we? When we come back, we'll bring you the news. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. It's another big story. I dare say the biggest one from last week amongst many. Last week, this week gone past, the Nigerian Senate confirmed 64 ambassadors nominated by President Bola Tinubu, including former ministers and high-profile public figures who are expected to strengthen Nigeria's diplomatic presence around the world. But this diplomatic milestone comes at a tense moment. The United States has imposed new travel restrictions on Nigerian nationals, suspending many immigrants and non-immigrant visa categories, citing security concerns and high visa overstay rates.
This convergence of events has sparked debate over Nigeria's global image, foreign policy priorities, and implications for travel, business, and international cooperation. And so to help us unpack what this means for Nigeria's diplomacy and its citizens, and of course for the future of Nigeria, we're joined by three experts. First, we have Patience Ndidi Key. She's the president and CEO of Nigerians in Diaspora Chamber of Commerce, who joins us virtually from Lagos. We also have Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi, who's the editor, Niche newspaper, and also a public affairs analyst. Mr. Amechi, it's good to have you on the program as well as Alexander von Rogan. He is a global affairs policy analyst joining us live virtually from the overseas, as we like to say. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you for coming on. Patience, let me start with you and just get your reaction, or what the immediate reaction has been from Nigerians living abroad, or Nigerians who are back home for the holiday and who have seen this news. What is it like in your community?
The confirmation of the 64 ambassadors for Nigeria, and right now that we face U.S. travel ban, for me, it signals an escalation of diplomatic pressure rather than just a routine foreign move. Washington is telling us that intentionally they want to recalibrate their global posture, using diplomacy as a leverage, visas and mobility restrictions as a leverage for, against countries like Nigeria, where we are failing in governance, security, and human rights. For us, this is consequential because it affects our relationship, it affects our reputation, it affects the political instruments, it affects also diaspora relationship. This will also affect the students, professionals, and investors. For those of us going in and out, it affects also the prices of things, and there's a lot of scare in the air. When this happened a couple of years ago, and a lot of talks about those who have coming with visas, those who have permanent stays, those who even are citizens. So there's a lot of things already happening due to this initiative from the United States government against our country. So it's something that we really need to deal with, because in a situation where the governance is not people-centric in terms of not looking into the security and welfare of the Nigerian people, it attracts external interferences. It is true that Nigeria is a sovereign country, but being a sovereign country does not stop you, does not give you that chance, to expose your people to insecurity, expose your people to non-protection, right, and all that.
Patience, I do have to ask whether or not, you are the president of, the Nigerian Diaspora Chamber of Commerce. So would these restrictions also affect businesses, or Nigerians in diaspora who have businesses as well, given that this ban is also on immigrant and, non-immigrant visas? What's it looking like in terms of impact? Just very quickly.
Oh, yes, it's the implication for Nigeria, diplomatic, sovereign, of course it will affect economic and business impact. It will disrupt businesses, travel and deal making. It will disrupt diaspora flows. It will disrupt access to global markets and innovation ecosystem. It will disrupt things like this. Our economy is deeply linked to diaspora capital trade. It is linked to trade facilitation. Our economy is linked to professional mobility. So any restriction on movement raises transactional costs. It discourages foreign investments. It weakens the confidence of Nigerian as a reliable partner to any community. When Nigeria was placed on CPC, a country of particular concern, even taxi drivers, when you Uber drivers, when you enter going somewhere, they talk about Nigeria when they know you're in Nigeria. So this brings a lot of disruption, not only to everything that has to do with economic base concerns human beings.
All right.
So yes, it's going to touch and negatively on the economic standard of the country, and also the relationship we have with the foreign investors and we as diasporans.
Right. I do have to ask you, Mr. Michi, let me just quickly bring you in and look at the timing of this, right? It's very interesting when you think of the timing of where this ban had happened, and just days after we had now confirmed the 64 ambassadors appointees. Let's talk about the timing, but also what does this mean? Is this politics, or is this a Trump administration, a diplomacy card? What are we looking at from your own standpoint, Mr. Michi?
We are looking at everything put together. In fact, this is the normal Trumpian game, ramping up pressure, as it were. Of course, don't forget that it was the pressure ab initio that led to the appointment of, or the nomination of ambassadors that have now been confirmed by the Senate for over 2 years, approximately 2.5 years since President Bola Tinubu recalled all ambassadors. There was lethargy, and he was not able to reappoint them, and therefore our foreign missions were left bare without people who would represent our interests as it is or as it should be. So it took Donald Trump declaring Nigeria a country of particular concern and ramping up pressure by saying that he was going to come to Nigeria guns a-blazing for a government that has been so lethargic as Tinubu's has been, to now wake itself from self-imposed slumber. But again, having decided to do the right thing, most Nigerians were disappointed in the caliber of people that the Tinubu administration appointed or nominated as ambassadorial nominees. So that also generated its own controversy. Then some Nigerians had hoped, when it became apparent that President Bola Tinubu was not going to rejig that list, some Nigerians had hoped that the National Assembly, the Senate to be precise, will do the needful and perhaps reject some of those nominees. Except that people like us also did one, that was not going to happen in any way. Knowing the National Assembly, the character of this 10th National Assembly, that was not going to happen. And as many Nigerians predicted, including myself, the Senate went ahead to confirm these people. Not only going to confirm them, there was practically no screening. They were told to take a bow and go. So the international community is watching. Of course, they know what is going on in Nigeria. I would rather say that this latest move by the Trump administration is not a coincidence. It is a reaction to what President Bola Tinubu has done with even the so-called nominations and subsequent confirmation. Don't forget, look, the whole thing became so absurd that even a dead man, Senator Adamu Talba, who died in July, was nominated. That will tell you the level of scrutiny, the level of care, the level of diligence that was brought to bear on the process. If you could nominate a man who died how many months ago as an ambassadorial nominee, it raises a lot of questions on the level of diligence that was put into the process, a process of appointing people who will be our ears and eyes in the international community. An ambassador, the position of an ambassador is a very prominent appointment, because these are people who represent your country. They are the country writ large, if I may use that expression, in the international community. That is why nations put out their right foot. They bring in their best to represent them. But here we are, bringing in our worst to go and represent us. So instead of the nominations and now approval, giving confidence to the international community, they have read between the lines. And what they found was that what we are bringing to them are people that even Nigerians don't agree with. You don't.
All right, Mr. Amechi.
Yes, please.
Yes, Mr. Amechi, I think you've made your point very, very clear. I'd like to ask Alexander, Mr. Van Rogen, a very interesting question. Now, let's look at the travel ban. Let's look at it globally. Can a nation claim diplomatic progress when its citizens are actually facing global access problems, shrinking access? What does it say about Nigeria as a state, and what test does it put on its new diplomatic corps?
Look at the reasons for travel bans. This isn't an action just against Nigeria. If you look at the other nations that are part of the travel ban into America, there are nations which have governance problems. They have internal strife, civil war. They have terrorist problems, whether it's religious or just banditry. In the case of Nigeria, it's of particular importance for Africa. You're the most populous nation in Africa. You're the representative of West Africa. You're the seat of ECOWAS. You've got governance problems. You were recently accused of Christian genocide, which I think is too secular. What we really have to say is you have a problem of banditry and terrorism within the country against Nigerians. Let's not bring religion into it. So when there's a travel ban, it means you have poor documentation. For a Nigerian or any African or any country that is under a ban to enter America or the West, they have to demonstrate that there's been a background check, there's perhaps a biometric passport that proves that that individual is the person that's actually on that passport. And there's been checks and balances through e-visas or other forms of documentation within the country to show that this person isn't of criminal origin or of questionable political beliefs, such as terrorism. And they're not going to be a threat to the people of the country they're entering, namely the United States. This is the catalyst to these bans. Nigeria has demonstrated they've got some housekeeping to do. Now, when we use the analogy of housekeeping, you can clean a house thoroughly, or you can sweep the dirt under the carpet. And if you sweep enough dirt under the carpet to hide it, eventually you're going to trip over that mound of dirt on the carpet. And I think what we're seeing right now is our knee-jerk reactions to threats being made by America. America said, clean up your house, or we're going to impose sanctions on your country. And if you can't clean it up, we're going to come in to do it. That's kind of a Trump-type threat. In reality, I see Nigeria reacting to it, as my colleague indicated. Your ambassadors are your first line of defense to a country. These are the PR people. They are the first line of political lobbyists in foreign countries. So the vetting process for those individuals should be done to their ability, not as political favors. You're example, your current permanent Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Joe Keshi, has been very outspoken that many of the nominees should actually be in jail because they're coming from your states where there's been questionable activities, you've got your major problems, and there's an opinion that a lot of these appointees are a deflection to, say, internal corruption, and granting of these nominations gives a bit of diplomatic immunity for problems they may be facing within Nigeria right now. So are these the right people for the job? I can't tell you that. I guess the proof will come out eventually. But I think it's a reaction to pressures that are now being put on Nigeria. And perhaps, as my colleague indicated, this list has been put together very hastily, and haste makes waste when you don't think things out properly.
Van Rugen, how is this going to affect trade? How is it going to affect investment in Nigeria? How is it going to affect bilateral cooperation between Nigeria and the U.S., hence?
Well, I think that's got to be demonstrated over time. Keep in mind these sanctions are reviewed every 180 days. Nigeria sent delegations to Washington. They're increasing their police force by 20,000 as part of those negotiations. They're increasing their military by 24,000. Part of the problem on who's in Nigeria is, are they really Nigerian? Do they have a fake passport? Did a corrupt government official give them documentation? You have porous borders in Chad, Cameroon, and Niger that aren't, thoroughly secured, and you've got an influx of possible terrorists coming in, which can reinvent themselves as Nigerians and possibly travel to America. That's the fear. So until the country demonstrates they're doing everything they can to curb those possibilities, and I see Nigeria's trying to move in the proper direction. Now, your question was, how does it affect trade? Well, trade is investor confidence is tied in with political risk and how investors are treated, foreign investors, especially in a country. If you have institutionalized corruption, where at every turn of the corner, somebody's got their hand out for a bribe or causing pressure for an outside company, we see this in the oil industry, you're going to have limited investment. Trump has taken a very, very hard stance. He's defunded a lot of the programs which he feels the money was being mismanaged due to corruption. U.S. aid is one, defunding the UN, defunding a lot of the NGOs. Nigeria was a recipient for over $1 billion a year of that funding. That's now in flux. It's being held back. I think the reward to receive that funding again, if it's even going to come, will be to demonstrate efficiency and security of the country, so we can lift the travel ban, or America can lift the travel ban, and it's a sign of confidence in the country. That can only be proven over time. The investment climate is going to be affected in the meantime. It's you've got to have the stomach to invest in certain areas.
Alexander, many thanks for that, because that just set the tone for our next question. But first, let's go on a short break. When we return, we'll look at what our foreign policy should look like for the next 180 days if a review of this travel ban is to happen. Let's go on a short break. After the break, we'll ask that question. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. Earlier, you're joining us for our second half of our big story today as we look to what Nigeria's foreign policy would look like, just giving the ban or the travel ban and restrictions on visas by the United States, just as Nigeria's Senate has now confirmed 64 non-career and career ambassadors. Joining us is Patience Key. She is the president of Nigerian Diaspora Chamber of Commerce. We also do have Alexander Van Rugen as well, who is a global affairs analyst, joining us live from Ontario, Canada. And here in Lagos is Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi, who is the editor-in-chief at Niche newspaper. Mr. Amechi, just before the break, there were very pertinent points that Alexander raised here, which was one, that, you know, there are certain things that the United States do want to see in terms of insecurity and buffering our security, but also our body language as well. Of course, travel bans are not set in stone. There will be a review in another 180 days. And so it set the tone of what then will be the charge for the 64 new appointees or new ambassadors when it comes to public foreign policy, for Nigeria's foreign policy, especially as it pertains key figures like the US, UK, and even Europe, you know, those bilateral trades that sort of fuel Nigerian diaspora and, you know, our trade cross Atlantic. And so what then will be our foreign policy? And most importantly, can those changes be made in terms of buffering our security, you know, naming and shaming and tightening our borders when it comes to terrorism and Islamic jihadists and the likes?
Changes can be made if there is the political will to make them. There is nothing that is going on in Nigeria today that cannot be reversed if the government musters the political will to do what is right. Alexander was right. These things are not cast in stone. It is reviewed every 180 days. And therefore, if Nigeria wants to reverse this very unfortunate status, it must do the needful. The question is, can the Tinubu government muster the political will to do the needful? I doubt. And my doubt stems from what he's been able to do so far. Like I said earlier, we had an opportunity to start the reset with the appointment of ambassadors.
Mr. Mechi, I hate to cut you, but I just want to bring this to the fore, just for your consideration. 180 days will mean 6 months right into the election period, and that would give, and this might just give the president somewhat of electoral credibility for a second term. Do you think he wouldn't have the political will to do that?
He won't. I dare say, even at the risk of being branded a pessimist, that the president is not looking for a renewal of his mandate in terms of people going there not to vote or not to vote. And that also explains most of the appointments he is making. If he has his eyes on the revalidation of his mandate by the people in whom the sovereignty of the Nigerian state resides, if he is depending on them, he won't be doing some of the things that he's doing. He won't be acting the way he's acting. He won't have very zero respect for public opinion. Mm-hmm. When the people say, look, we don't want this, a government that cares about public opinion, a government that will depend on the people for re-election, will do things differently from the way President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing things. Okay, yes, the Minister of Defense, Nabadaru, was shoved aside. What is Metawale still doing as the Minister of State for Defense? What is he still doing? Look, the governor of Kebbi State was on record to have said 45 minutes before the adoption of the school girls, the military left the school and made it very, very easy for the terrorists to strike. Who is being investigated? Has any investigation been conducted to know who gave that order and why? How many months after, Nigerians have moved up. The 300 MAGA school children, who were told at the stage, 100 of them have been rescued. What has happened to the over 200 others that are still in captivity? What are we doing? Or are they going to be forgotten again like the Chibok girls? Look, unless and until in any other country, I continue emphasizing this, in any other country where terrorists go into a school and take away 300 students, that country will come to a standstill until those children are rescued.
Mr. Mechi, Mr. Mechi, I think that point is a very, very salient point there. But I also like to look at this from the international perspective. And patience, please be patient with us. I have one question for you, but I have to ask Mr. Von Rogen this question, and it leads into the last question I will be asking you. Mr. Von Rogen, what diplomatic options does Nigeria have now regarding the ban caused by the insecurity that they purported is causing this ban? Is it diplomatic retaliation? Is it diplomatic engagement? What are the implications of either of these choices?
There is not a one-sentence answer to your question. First of all, the ban is a multitude of factors that is causing this ban. A lack of governance in Nigeria has caused, as my colleague just said, any other nation that would have 200 children kidnapped, that country would be on hold until the perpetrators were caught and executed. Okay? You're not going to talk a problem to death. You have to shoot it. And in past administrations in U.S. and Europe, they've used diplomacy. And I think perhaps other countries have, including Nigeria, have been spoiled by diplomacy. Diplomacy is basically paralysis through analysis. Trump's style is affirmative. He gives alternatives. He's a take charge kind of guy. People hate him for it,
and because of
people
that,
love him.
Rogen, because of these ultimatums that the U.S. is placing, should Nigeria follow up with likewise with retaliation, say ban on United States visas or applicants, or should they engage in perhaps maybe let's talk about this? What exactly should be their route now? What would best serve the common man or those in the diaspora?
Well, the knee-jerk reaction, unfortunately, in Africa, if a country from the West makes it, it can sometimes be misinterpreted as a colonialist order. It shouldn't be interpreted that way. It's got nothing to do with colonialism. If you're going to do reciprocal moves, then if the U.S. citizens are a threat to Nigeria coming in and causing havoc, of course, a reciprocal travel ban would be in order, but that's clearly not Nigeria that's been selected or targeted here. It's over 30 nations of questionable security breaches where they don't document their citizens properly. And in the case of America, we've had recent shootings by immigrants, and that's triggered a public outcry. Trump has really used that in his narrative to promote his deportation program and to reduce immigration. That doesn't mean Africans can't come to America. In fact, if you look at the statistic, the average Nigerian immigrant in America makes more money than the average American.
All right,
okay,
Alexander.
if you want to take a analysis about it. So compared with other groups. But again, as soon as you start comparing nationalities, religions, and countries, well, suddenly you're a racist.
All right, Alexander.
I'm very pragmatic about it. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I'm going to call it a duck.
All right, that's a very nice one. Well, Patience, now what's best for the diaspora community? Retaliation or engagement?
I think engagement is the best option. Looking into he had asked question about, diplomacy, what should Nigeria do, and things like that. I think what is reaction when things like that happen. We need to engage, but the engagement should start within the people. We should be engaging with our people. We have a weak government and governance and way of governance. We have a government that are not visionary. They are not people-centric. And like one of the speakers said, this is not the time to begin to look at, having elected the second time. It's about the people. Leadership is about the people. I'm currently in Nigeria because Nigerians in the Diaspora Chamber of Commerce, we came to launch the chamber in Nigeria, and we choose to launch it in Nigeria because Nigeria being the big brother of Africa, it's a great gain. It's a good thing, but it's not just enough. We need to also look into our borders. We need to be people-centric. We need to understand that the foremost responsibility of any government is protection of life and property for the people. So for being that we have come here and we have launched, what we as Nigerians in diaspora are looking at, should we want to do, as also living in the United States myself, it's, we need to look at engaging with the U.S. policymakers, the business leaders and institutions outside the formal government channel. How do we do this? We are going to discuss reframing, to reframe Nigeria, beyond just the headlines. Present credible reform-oriented voices, because Nigerians in diaspora will come with strength. We have a voice, and we need to be up and doing in doing that. I was also a former chairman of Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, 2017 to 2020, and we know how we related with the State Department, White House, and things like that. We're also going to be looking at separating Nigerian citizens and entrepreneurs from political failures, because it's good to note that economic diplomacy, can often succeed where political diplomacy stalls. Secondly, we'll be looking into policy advocacy and advisory interface. How do we do this? We'll convene policy roundtables with U.S. stakeholders on Nigerians' security governance challenges that we're facing or we've been facing for a number of years now. We'll provide evidence-based briefing. Here we'll highlight diaspora contributions, our contributions in America, our contributions in every part of the world, and also our contribution to our country, the trade volumes and reform pathways. We'll also advocate for targeted accountability measures. Here we're looking at elite-focused sanctions, elite and government-focused sanctions, instead of blanket travel bans that harm ordinary Nigerian citizens.
Okay.
So if we're looking at, if we really want the Nigerian government, the community to do well, if that is why the United States is doing what they are doing, of which they have a right to do whatever they want to do, they're a country on their own, but we should be focused on the elites and the Nigerian government that are actually not doing what they need to do for the people, instead of just blanket travel ban that affect ordinary Nigerians. Thirdly, we'll be looking at the trade investment.
Patience, I hate to cut you, but unfortunately we do have to go. Thank you so much. We're pressed for time. We've gone over our time. I'm also thank you to you, Patience Ndidike, who is the president of Nigerian Diaspora Chamber of Commerce. Also to you, Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi, editor for Niche newspaper and public affairs analyst, and of course Rogan, Alexander von Rogan, there we go, who is a global affairs analyst joining us from Ontario, Canada. Well, we wait to see what the 64 will bring and what the next 6 months will look like for this ban, and whether or not there will be a reversal. Only time will tell, and if this administration will have the political will to do the right thing. Thank you once again. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we come back, we switch gears. And this time, we might be going around to Balogun Market, Abi?
Yes. Or bringing you to, because we're in Lagos.
We're in Lagos, okay. After the break, stay with us. Welcome back. Now, before we head to Balogun Market, let's take a deep dive into Nigeria's 2026 budget, shall we? It was proposed at 58.18 trillion naira by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu this week before the National Assembly. a joint session of the National Assembly, by the way. Now, in his presentation, the President spoke about fiscal discipline. The President spoke about fiscal discipline and also consolidating reforms and driving shared prosperity. He also promised an end to the long-standing practice of rolling over unspent budget funds from one year to the next.
But analysts are raising questions about how realistic the revenue assumptions are. What happens if revenue targets aren't met, and whether delays in passing the budgets could slow down implementation and stall key projects? So, to help us unpack and get the implications, especially around funding gaps and implementation, we're joined by Inyabong Yusin, Senior Program Coordinator at the International Budget Partnership. Inyabong, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's start with the budget size. Nigeria's proposed 2026 budget. What's your take on the size? Currently, it's 58.18 trillion naira. From your perspective, are the revenue projections underpinning this proposal realistically, given current economic performance?
Yeah, thank you, Maz. And I mean, good morning, compliments of the season to you and Judith. I mean, this current budget is equally suffering from some of the legacy issues that, our fiscal management and planning has suffered over the past couple of years. If you look at the budget size of 58 trillion naira and you juxtapose that with what our budget implementation has been over the last couple of years, I mean, the facts tell us that with what we post to see next year, it's largely unlikely that we would be able to raise the resources needed to implement this budget. And you spoke rightly to some of the issues that other analysts have highlighted as one of the major challenges with the implementation of this budget for next year. Nigeria suffers from a revenue optimism bias, where instead of setting realistic targets for what we have the capacity to raise, we sort of confuse ambition with delusion. Ambition is setting very challenging goals that you have the capacity to achieve. But what we've seen, year after year with the planning process for what our capacity is to raise revenue is, far from what the reality on the ground is. And the implication for this is that when your budget fails, it means that a child cannot go to school as a result of, a lot of the issues that are affecting the out-of-school children. It means that a woman who is pregnant, right, and needs to deliver would not have access to the basic facilities, and that's what's responsible for the high maternal mortality rate. It also means that the number of graduates you are churning out on a yearly basis do not have, access to opportunities to, contribute effectively to the economy and raise revenues to meet their basic needs. So budget failures are not just numbers on papers, but then they have real implications for the lives of the everyday Nigerian. And that's why I'm very happy that with regards to the issues around our fiscal matters, with the budgets, with the tax reforms, that there's a lot more heightened interest in how government raise revenues, how they plan to spend those revenues, and then account for those revenues at the end of the day.
Right. One of President Bola Tinubu's priorities is ending budget rollovers, where unspent funds from previous years carry over in the next. But there are many others who have said that 2025 budget has not yet been fully implemented, and some projects have not even been done. So one has to ask about the potentials or potential benefits of this change and what challenges exist in making it a reality, when there are cases of uncompleted projects or lack of full implementation of the budget in terms of funds.
So this is also one of the legacy issues that advocates like myself have been hammering on over the past couple of years. You cannot have multiple budgets funded with one revenue year after year. It runs against the core principles of, budgeting and fiscal management. I liken this to you trying to cook 4 different meals or 3 different meals with one pot and one stove. And that's just tantamount to, concussion that will come out of it at the end of the day. our budgets are not linked to whether our long-term development plans or our medium-term development plans that you expect the federal government, the subnational government, and the private sector to contribute to, which largely instructs what our growth patterns would be. And so this practice of rolling budgets over and using a single year's revenue to fund those budgets is largely unsustainable. And it stems from, the practice of, the allocation of resources to projects within the budget. It's another issue that we must curb. In addition to this, is the arbitrary insertion of projects into the budget that the National Assembly is largely responsible for. I mean, if you look over the last 3 or 4 years, you see that on a yearly basis, an average of 6,000 to 7,000 projects are inserted into the budget after the executive has submitted its plan. And what that makes the budget become is that it's simply unimplementable because these budgets are driven by assumptions that drive what your revenue projections are, that looks at some macro fundamentals like your economic growth rate, the inflation, what the exchange rate would be, oil price, oil production at the end of the day. And so when you insert a lot of these projects that did not go through any sort of real thought process, but had served as a means to reach their constituencies in quotes, there's no real way of funding these projects. And at the end of the day, what you see are these sort of projects that do not tie to medium or long-term development, competing with what exactly a government should be, spending or expending very lean resources on. And then this leads to government borrowing irresponsibly, for the want of a better word, or arbitrarily to cater to a lot of these projects in a way that is not coordinated to be able to drive growth and economic development at the end of the day. So while I agree that this practice must stop, it's also that now that the ball has been pushed into the arena of the National Assembly, that also that practice of arbitrarily inserting projects that do not go through any sort of rigor or scrutiny in terms of how that contributes to national planning, development, or even the viability of those projects to be able to raise people out of poverty, that practice must equally stop. And then the National Assembly equally needs to rise up to its constitutional role of effective and functional oversight. That's practice of.
Let me jump on what you've just said there, because it confuses me how the end to these rollovers is actually going to help. Is it going to help efficient implementation of these budgets, or make sure that whatever the projects that they are being allocated to are done efficiently, or is it just simply going to increase year-end spending, just to rush and make sure that let's spend it before the year runs out? How is it going to affect positively these budgets and how they're used?
So the truth is that the revenues are not even available to spend till the year end. And that's the real dilemma.
So then why are we talking about rollovers then? If there's no rollover, why is it a topic? Why is it something that he's big on?
So the issue about the rollover is so that you do not create new projects, about 20,000 of them, that you do not have the capacity to equally fund. And so why don't you take these projects that have been that have had funds allocated to, enacted by the National Assembly and signed into law by the president, right? And move them into 2026 as against creating new sets of projects that you do not have the capacity to fund. And then you stop that practice of rolling that over. But where I differ from the president is the optimism that we would be able to fund all of those projects. Mind you, 70% of which have been rolled over from 2025, for which, literally nothing, has been expended on, that we have that capacity to be able to, cater to those projects by Q1 2023. The truth is that the revenues we need to implement those projects in 2026 would still come in 2026. And then if you look at, what the drivers of that revenue would be, oil revenue, Nigeria has about is reported to have about 20 million liters of crude that is just sitting somewhere looking for buyers. There's a glut in the market because there are cheaper alternatives in the Middle East. And so it's projected that, in the first half of 2026, the price of crude will drop. And so that optimism with oil price and production does not coincide with what the projected realities would be in 2026. I know that we also expect increased revenues from the tax reforms because there will be better tax administration. We're expecting a lot more people to be brought into the tax net.
All right.
But there's also going to be an implementation lag, meaning that by the time these laws will come into effect, and then the authorities will be able to run with it, build the administrative capacity of the NRS and then the various state IRSs to be able to raise revenue, deploy the technology required, for the efficiency that we need in collection. That would be happening maybe close to the beginning of the second quarter, as the case may be. So also that optimism that we will be able to raise enough revenues to, cater to all of these projects we are rolling over, for me, is equally highly ambitious. I do not see that happening.
Highly ambitious indeed.
Risk elections for 2026. And with every pre-election year, governance usually takes the back seat, and politicking is at the fore of what it is. Technocrats, politicians will be going back to their bases to go and query for votes that they expect citizens to cast.
Okay, Inyabong, there's another thing. There's another thing I want to get your attention on, and of the budget, the most allocation was to security, 5.41 trillion. That's the biggest we've ever seen. Let's compare this to previous years. And especially that Nigeria is going through a situation right now that is causing international attention when it comes to internal security. Will 5.41 trillion naira be enough to make a change in the security situation that Nigeria finds itself when you compare it to the previous year's allocation or the year from before that? Do you see anything significantly changing when it comes to the actual state of security in Nigeria because of this budget?
I mean, I'm an optimist. And as you know, with the Nigerian security situation, it's not just a money problem we have. We also have an expenditure problem. If you look at what we've expended over the last couple of years, there's no accountability for how these funds have been utilized. We have a very weak, accountability system. There's almost no consequence management for mismanagement of public funds. And when you do not, create examples that serve as deterrents, these malpractices continue. And so when it comes to security, it's not just a money problem. I know that we do not allocate enough resources to buy the equipment required to be able to fight this war head on. If you look at also the welfare system for our soldiers who are at the forefront, a lot more could be done. But even beyond that, I'm a pragmatist. I'm somebody who looks at, even within the existing resource envelopes, that we have to solve the myriad of our challenges. Are we getting value for money? Is every naira or dollar that we deploy to solve, our problems actually fighting those problems? Or a large chunk of it, being lost to, embezzlement, fraud, malpractices? And for me, that's where the real issue is. So it's not really, for me, about increasing the budget to any of these sectors. Because when you increase the budget without solving for the systemic issues, what you are doing is increasing the fiscal space for fraud or corruption. And I always liken this to, I always try to address this, showing examples with the different states. So if you look at the different states and what their capacity to collect revenues, I wouldn't say raise revenues, because at the end of the day, if you look at the oil-producing states and you put them side by side with states that are not oil-producing, and you look at the huge resources that go to oil-producing states, maybe like Akwa Ibom, like Rivers, like Bayelsa, and you look at the resources going to states like Gombe, if you pick a child from Akwa Ibom in a village somewhere in Akwa Ibom, maybe in Ibuno, where the oil is being produced, and then the state receives huge resources as a result of 13% derivation, and you pick a child from a remote village in Gombe, you can't tell the difference between both. Right. Meaning that the huge resources going to these subnationals are not translating into improved livelihoods for the citizens of those states.
Right.
So just throwing money at a problem without solving for the systemic issues doesn't necessarily solve the problem. So while we have a revenue problem that does not allow us to allocate resources adequately to solve our problems, more importantly, we have an expenditure problem that allows for waste, allows for embezzlement, allows for the fizzling of our lean resources to solve more of these problems.
All right.
And if we tackle those systemic problems.
All right. Maiwa is unfortunately not here and asking. Niobong, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this with us. It's very interesting that tentatively the cost of the Calabar Coastal Highway is about 15 trillion naira, just as we have 18 trillion naira for our budget. And we're just, still in the first phase of the project. Only God only knows, when we're talking about accountability and transparency, what a fraction of this 2026 budget will look like if it's going into that project as well. I wish there was enough time for us to continue the discussion, but here's where we draw the curtain. Once again, thank you, Niobong Hussein there, our guest joining us, give us a bit of insight following the presentation of the 2026 appropriation bill to the National Assembly. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we come back, Extra Special is around, and now we're going to Balogun Market, I promise. After the break, stay with us.
Welcome back to Breakfast Extra. Now, if there is one place that truly captures the hustle and bustle, color and character of Lagos, it is Balogun Market. From fabric to footwear to food items and fast bargains, Balogun is not just a market, it's an entire experience.
And this morning on Waka Waka World, our very own Dr. Waka Waka steps right into the heart of it all to explore the sights, sounds, and stories that make Balogun Market one of Nigeria's most iconic markets. But before we take a look at his adventure, Dr. Waka Waka is here in the studio with us.
Yeah, let's take a look at him.
Yeah. Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much.
I want to start by saying 970,000 people follow you on social, so at least on Instagram.
On Instagram alone, yeah.
Yeah, you're a bit too proud.
So how many? Is the same number on TikTok? I know TikTok is harder to scale up.
I've got almost 3 million people across social media platforms.
Yeah. What? So Facebook should be higher then.
Facebook, I've just started it, so it's probably the lowest one, about 100,000 people.
So for me, it's the amount of people who have access to the kind of content that you put out there, especially about Nigeria. And before we started, we were talking about how I feel Nigeria isn't exposed enough to Nigerians. People will tell you about, when I was in Brixton, or when I was in the UK, but they never tell you about when I was in Osogbo, when I was at Kajuru, when I was in Gurara. And I don't think we see much of Nigeria. So this is not a question. It's just to say thank you for bringing Nigeria to Nigerians.
Thank you.
I think it's a big deal.
Thank you. I mean, I've always felt that Nigeria doesn't lack adventure sites or places for people to see. I think what we lack is intentional storytelling. There's a lot of negativity around Nigeria, but we need to also shift to telling good stories about the good parts of Nigeria for the rest of the world to see. And it's a ripple effect. People see these things, the positive side of our great country, and then it influences people to want to come, visit, and that in turn also creates a spark effect on the economy.
What are the biggest challenges for you in creating this expose? Don't say security.
But security is security. We cannot but mention security. We have to, right? I mean, I know that, fear, and it's just people spreading the news. It's not as bad as they make it look, but it's still a situation. And, people have experienced it, so security for sure has to be dealt with, and it will make things easier because, I mean, you look at northern Nigeria, for instance, when you tell somebody you want to go to northern Nigeria, the first thing that hinders them is, am I going to be safe?
Right.
So,
I mean, because, years back, there was a castle, I keep forgetting the name of the castle. Kajuru Castle in Kaduna that had that attack, and a number of persons were killed. But there's a conversation about insecurity in the north, and the insecurity that is slowly shrinking to tourism as we know it. And so I'm very thankful and somewhat excited that you decided to explore some of those territories or places that one wouldn't think of it as a tourist site, for example, Balogun Market, which is just something you're going on.
Bringing it back.
It's going down, and you just see all the heads, like a pool of heads, like, yeah, thank God I'm not going to market today, and you just ride past, right?
One of the biggest markets.
Right, so I do have to ask, it's a merger between a market and a central business district, because people forget that some of the headquarters of Nigeria's biggest banks are right there in that market. So why Balogun Market?
Well, I mean, it's like you said, you just look at Balogun Market, and it captures a certain viewpoint of Nigerians. Look at the people,
chaos.
You look at the culture, you look at beauty in chaos. You see it, and it's chaotic, but there's so much beauty that comes from it. You meet people, and there's this warmth and that you feel from the people you meet, the conversations you start with local people who are very excited to want to talk to you. The amount of commerce that happens there, buying and selling, negotiations, is just a place filled with, it's music to your ears.
It's music.
It is.
In furtherance to our previous conversation on security, when I think Balogun, I don't exactly think of going there and saying, is Yunus alive now? I'm in Balogun. I'm scared of getting that phone snatched out of my hand. So when it comes to security, were there challenges even in that little unit?
I mean, yes.
How did you?
You had to take permissions. You had to speak to people. We also had to get someone to accompany us through various spaces around the market, and of course you have to pay.
So you needed to get integrated into the community
you have to
itself
integrate and speak to people, take permissions. In fact, we didn't know we had to get permission to go to certain places on certain days. And so that's one of the things you get to know when you start telling stories about such places.
It's very interesting. You're a Waka Waka doctor, and you are male. And so your stories are told from a male gaze, a male perspective. I, as a female, as a woman, dread going to the market. It doesn't mean, I don't care if it's a cold Balogun.
Who says I enjoy going to the market?
No, what I mean is besides the haggling and the bargaining, there's also the whistling, and the cock calls as well. And it's much more exhausting and draining, right? And so I wonder how that is, exploring from the male perspective.
How different is that from me? I get cat calls too. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Every day, I've never seen anyone who just wants to be a sex symbol. Don't worry, you're close. You just need like 2 packs or 4 packs. And that's okay.
I mean, I think your points are valid. I think men get it a bit easier when it comes to traveling in general.
Right.
It's safer for men when they travel solo than for women to go to certain places. So for sure, you might want to go with, you might as a female who wants to go into the center of the market, for instance, you might feel like you need someone to accompany you. You need to just find a way to block out all the noise and do what you have to do there. But it's not a pretty sight for a lot of ladies who go into the market.
Right.
Still on the implications of security, we have certain Nollywood expressions that don't exactly put these areas, especially of Lagos, in good light. You have movies that are centered around these areas that have to do with gangs, thievery, and the violence that goes. Are these actual instances? Did you come across all of these?
No, I mean, specifically with the market, no, I didn't. But of course, you find people there who will try to take advantage of you. But I'm also a Lagosian now. I'm a street boy now. So
you don't get cat calls like my color. I'm sure that's one you get.
Oh my God! Oh, my color. And you turn around, it's some chocolatey brown, like somebody that would never speak to me on a good. My color, I have it. Hey, box. And they start reeling out all the things that they think that I need.
The part that really irritates me is when they try to hold.
When they grab you.
So I would walk behind my wife or my sisters when we go to the market, and that was my main job to like.
But this is not unique. It's not unique to Nigeria. You find it in other places, big markets in Tanzania or across the Francophone region of West Africa. You also find the same thing.
Right.
So you just have to find a way to deal with it. And with respect to the gangs and all that within Lagos, it's why I started by saying intentional storytelling is important. It's not as if these things don't exist in the US, for instance, but it's the way they tell the stories. So say, for instance, when you watch a movie and they want to depict Mexico, for instance, you see that the color of the film is different from when they want to depict the United States. So it's how they tell their stories, and we need to change. We have to create our own narrative.
There's a level of art that goes into it and storytelling.
To me, to be very honest, and I've said this so many times, I don't think that the capitalist should be the one who's charged with the responsibility to tell Nigeria's story, because they are out for their margins and they're out to make money, and they have the creative license to do what they have to do. And so if you want to incentivize them to tell the Nigerian story, then start to create film funds and all of that, and put some sort of terms and conditions where you're getting those funds. But away from that, you are well traveled, because you just talk about Tanzania and the Francophone countries 79 countries. That is huge. Proud. And so Balogun Market, I mean, you're saying there's some similarities that you've seen. So what was the essence that you caught in this piece of yours when you went into the market? What were the things that stood out for you that you were able to, that you tried to capture in this story?
It's the color. The color within the market, the stories that you can find within the chaos in the market. It's how you interact with people. And I've been to a large market in Côte d'Ivoire. I've been to one in Tanzania. And the way people talk to you is quite different. Whether you believe it or not, Lagosians or Nigerians are very hospitable people, and you just feel this warmth that's different from every other place. And I also wanted to tell a story that in the midst of chaos, you can find beauty. You can find beauty from ashes, So that's what I tried to tell with the story of Balogun Market.
We would like to see for ourselves. We don't want to go there.
Yeah, let's see.
You packaged it already for us. So let's see where Waka Waka Doctor took us to this weekend. Balogun Market, as we have said and told about it. Well, let's bring it to you in Technicolor.
Welcome to the city of Lagos. It's Nigeria's economic or maybe you want to think of it as Nigeria's womb. That's Nigeria's economic engine. It's a hot melting point of all cultures within Nigeria. This episode, I'm going to be your tour guide, and I want to show you the fascinating things you can see within the market lifestyle in Lagos. So, like I always do, World Explorers, are you ready for this episode? Let's go!
Mi ò gara sí anybody ìbà fún gbogbo Lagos.
Oh yeah now.
Lérè mo ti wá, we don't know how to give up. Mo ti pẹ́ nínú géèmù yìí, ẹ jẹ́ ká serious. Àbí ṣó dìgbà tí àfáà bá ń pariwo Jesus. Mi ò lè sọ tiẹ̀ wá mọ́ ojú mi náà. Kó má lọ dàbẹ́ ni wípé mi nìkan lójú mi rọ̀. Kó má lọ tẹ́rí sí nǹkan tó jí méjì ò lè rí mọ́. My name is Samson, but you can call me the Blue Stars. Tó pẹran ògúnfe fáwọn alámàlà.
Oh, makes sense. Yeah. So what's your job here?
Actually, I am designer manager. I am marketing agent.
But you work in this market?
I work in this market. I work in Mandlas.
And you told me
design.
You told me that you work here during the day.
Yeah.
And at night you rap.
Yeah, I work here during the day to also for the money for the studio.
For the studio. Yeah. Show us your talent now.
Okay. Ajá tó bá jẹ igi ẹ̀gún ẹnu ẹ máa kún fẹ́ jẹ. Àbòsí nìgbín ṣe títí tí ò fi lẹ́jẹ̀. Tó bá fẹ́ ṣe wèrè ṣáwọn tí bó ṣe fi lélẹ̀. Káwọn ọmọ wa jírébi kọ́ má lọ jí débẹ̀. Wọ́n fẹ́ fi wá ṣe ẹ̀yẹ, they want to make a jest. Now mo ti dé sí yín lọ́rùn bíi January 1st. Pẹ́sẹ̀ máa máa wò mí ìrètí máa fi sábímà. Ìgbà yẹn lẹ máa mọ̀ pé mo ní point bíi decimal. Tí Mayweather yín bá bẹ́ ya máa nà yín pa. Kò bá jọ ní tẹ́tẹ́ ní yín mẹ́ẹ̀ẹ́ lè bá wa ta. Ìbílẹ̀ United ẹ̀yin lè máa jẹ fried rice ẹ̀bà làwa ń tẹ̀ mo ti gbé búrẹ́dì mi dé mo fẹ́ fi jẹ wa gan yín tábà tẹ̀ wá ń bú àjẹ́ kò tọ́ sẹ́nu wa gan yín tó bá tẹ̀ lọ Taraba àkọ́kọ́ gba Jalingo. jalo
This Balogun market is a very famous market. Do you know it's named after Chief Balogun himself, one of the biggest warriors during the pre-colonial era in Lagos State. This market has now turned out to be one of the largest in West Africa.
Type of Ankara that you want is here. We are the #1. We can give you more. Fine Ankara, different type. Don't worry. You are #1 plug. Hello.
How many years have you been here in this shop?
I didn't start from here.
Okay.
I start from outside there.
You started from outside?
Outside there. I start from small, kick clap like this.
Very small?
Very, very small.
So is this your second shop or your third shop?
Oh, this is about fifth shop.
Fifth shop?
Yes.
So you were growing from small.
I'm going gradually, from one place to the other,
So how many years in total have you been in Balogun?
I started this business since when I was 18 years.
18 years?
Yes, with my mom.
Wow.
So I follow her to the markets. So after, when I was about 32 years, I came in fully to this Ankara business.
How old are you now?
I'm 50.
You are 50?
Yes, I did my 50th birthday this year.
Wow.
Amazing.
So you've been doing this business for 32 years?
Yes.
Wow. And you started from small size?
Started from small size, from small size.
And your mother was also doing this business as well?
Before.
So it's like she handed it over to you.
Exactly.
Do you have children in this business? No.
My children, they are in the school.
They are in the school, okay. And do you sell, I can see that you sell, this is Ankara. Do you sell for just Nigerians alone, or you sell, do people come from outside Nigeria come back?
People come from everywhere. They come from Abidjan. From Cotonou. From Ghana, Burkina Faso, Tanzania, and so on and so forth. They came to Nigeria to come and buy. Before, we normally travel to Abidjan, that is Ivory Coast, to go and buy. We travel to Ghana to go and buy. But now, those people, they come to Nigeria to go and buy from us.
I heard you say that you are the #1 in this market. Exactly. Why do you think you're #1?
The reason why I said that, no matter the types of Ankara that you want, that you cannot see here, from small one to medium, to big one, to large one, to highest, no matter what you want.
And you are giving us for free, have you?
No, we sell now for free like how.
But you're not expensive, are you? What's the typical rate? If you want to buy this now, how much?
Like this one is 12,000.
12,000 naira.
I have the one of 17,000, 80,000.
Is this the cheapest?
No, the cheapest is 3,500.
3,000. So it's from, say, you can get from 3,000 to
500.
Okay.
We have the one of 4,000. We have 10,000. We have 15,000. We have 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, 35,000, 40,000.
Wow.
And so on and so forth.
And you've been doing this business for 32 years.
Yes.
People say Balogun Market is one of the biggest markets in Africa. How has it been for you selling things to people, meeting people, taxis? Do people disturb you when you open your shops and all that?
What happens is that once you have focus on what you want to do, you don't mind whatever will happen. There are some customers, they will come, they will disturb you, they will abuse you, they will do this, that. But since you know you want to collect money from them, whatever one you collect from them, there is gain.
There's gain.
So you have to know how to handle customer. But some people, they will abuse customer. For me, I don't do that. If you come today, you don't buy, and I treat you well,
You will come?
You will come next time. Some customers say, Elijah, I like the way you treat me. Even I didn't buy from you, and I like your attitude. Don't worry, next time I will introduce you. I sell for London people.
So what's your message to people who live abroad that want to come here? What's your message to them?
What is the message? Like me now, I cannot live in abroad.
You cannot live abroad?
No. I'm okay like this.
Okay.
So my advice to them is that they can try to come home and come and invest.
And come and invest in this kind of business.
In this kind of business.
All right. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
A fantastic piece there from Waka Waka Doctor. They're just exploring the entirety of Balogun Market. Colorful, wonderful characters, sights and sounds, capturing the very heart of Lagos. And I do have to say, that was a lovely piece. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So 10-10?
10-10? What's that?
10 over 10?
Rating.
Oh, 10 over 10.
Yes.
10 across all boards.
I thought it was... I'm like, yeah, I get cat calls, but I don't...
10 across all boards, man. You didn't even know. So anyway, Doctor, before we do let you go, what's going to happen next week? What do you have for us next week? What should we look forward to?
Well, next week, I would prefer not to let the cat out of the bag, but it's something very scintillating. I think everybody should tune in and just watch what I've got next.
Grand.
Yes, indeed. I hope he also does capture the tenacity and the perseverance and just the hearts of Lagosians or Nigerians as well.
100%.
Tenacity of also, yes, indeed. Well, pretty much brings us to this very end of this episode here. Waka Waka Doctors was our guest. Make sure to join us next week as well for Waka Waka World. This time it takes us on another adventure. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we come back, we got one more creative corner, and this time is much more vivacious and creative. Is that the word? Yeah. After the break, stay with us.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yes. We're making the dailies our last segment for today, purposefully. And we're going to be taking a look at everything that's happening as you perhaps are stepping out to go about your weekend, starting the weekend off for a Saturday here. It's the festive season, and of course, everyone's concerned about what might be affecting their pockets or so and so. I don't know how you're going to manage this festive season with the traffic and everything that's been happening since, and also the lack of IJGBs. That's what I think. As compared to last year, and I think that this will have a great...
Have you been to the airports?
There is no one coming home.
What? Don't say that.
Calm down. Let's start with the punch.
I gotta defend my IJGB. I don't like that. You need to stop, okay? Because first of all, Wednesday, I was on pickup assignment. And because there's a family event happening, so I was on pickup assignment, right? I kid you not. On the drive up to the international, if you see the traffic, it feels like Lekki Ekpe Express, Shongotede Abramade Sonia, Saka 2019-2018.
So I'm asking.
It is wild. In fact, Saka 2017, during that roundabout construction, that's how horrible it was. Then we now leg at these Benz up, right? The flight arrived around 11:40. Before they could get their baggage claim was about 2 o'clock. Okay. I'm not even messing with you. Before I left there was 4 p.m.
You and your 4 friends are not going to.
I don't have 4 friends. It's not my friends. So I'm saying family. I'm saying friends.
Your four family members that just came back will not even have a notch.
Did I say 4?
I'm just speculating here. Will not even have a notch on the statistics when compared to that from last year. I'll tell you why. And the Punch newspaper says it. The Punch newspaper says it here, front page, Saturday Punch here. U.S. visa panic disrupts 30 December.
I beg.
Listen. Travelers, students cancel trips to Nigeria, fear of detention, visa revocation heightens, and that's
What
the
about
reality.
the first batch and second batch that came? You know they come in batches, right?
This is the point. There's very plenty apprehension when it comes to stepping back inside of Nigeria as a Nigerian because of you don't know what next is going to happen, how these policies that the U.S. are putting forward might change, even in the next few days.
What about Canada?
Well, then there is
about the UK?
Well, I would like to think that the greater amount of IJGBs are actually
from the US?
From the US. I know that the UK has plenty of Nigerians coming back
And
home.
Canada?
But even when you come to local sources here in Nigeria, how much have businesses put into making resources for people who are coming back? Not much compared to last year. And I wait for the stats after this month. And you know I'm always right. When it happens, I will show you that it is very different. Laugh in my face all you want, but this year's Dirty December is nothing compared to what last year had for us. And I make bold to say I'm waiting for the stats on that one when it happens.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Okay, because you're using one US visa ban as statistics for the numbers.
It has a very big implication.
I don't think it does. There's UK, there's Canada. We have a huge population of Nigerians in the UK. And of course, you seem to forget that a majority of those numbers that are in the UK are from a tribe that is, I'm not going to use tribe, but again, the numbers don't lie.
We wait to see.
Ashwebi, weddings.
We wait to see. We wait to see. Still on the Punch newspaper front page here, we will show terrorist sponsors no mercy. Tinubu says budget's 5.41 trillion naira for defense security. We had that conversation from earlier this morning. It's the biggest record so far for allocation for security. And we hope to see what that's going to change. 25 Stars, who dominated 2025. Punch newspapers got that one on ready for read for you. And Guardians of the Dead, harsh realities of Lagos cemetery workers. That's a story untold. And of course, my wife bled for 15 hours without help after childbirth. Bereaved husband John tells. Plenty of stories like that happening in Lagos regarding the lack of care from hospitals. Let's move on to what you have now. The Independence, if I'm not mistaken.
Saturday Independence. We're going to pull that up there on the screen there. A year of crisis, accountability, battles, and governance test. Senate under siege. You can find the story on page 8. Right there, right under there is the FEC, that's FEC, approves about 58.47 trillion naira 2026 budget proposals. Tinubu, now the numbers are quite conflicting because we see 58.18 and there's now 58.47 trillion naira here. Now Tinubu declares armed non-state actors as terrorists. Budget of consolidated renewed sufferings, says PDP. You can find that story on page 20 of the Saturday Independent. At the top there, state governors must comply with local government autonomy henceforth. That's from President Tinubu there. Will vow to win terrorists, state police sacrosanct. You can find that story on page 22. Right next to it, the Sliz allegation. Farouk will not escape persecution due to caliber of whistleblower. That's from Courier there. That story is page 5. Yes, indeed. Let's think about it. Alhaji Dangote is a whistleblower at this point.
He's been a diva. He's been a diva lately.
I love it. Never seen him in that character before, in that light, and it's very interesting to see.
Interesting. All he needs is blonde hair.
Yeah, love that. At the bottom there, mother sells 2-month-old baby for 1.5 million naira. Woman to suspected buyers in police custody. That story is on page 30. That's human trafficking. At the bottom there, from Sokoto to the world, why Rajatu Ibrahim transitioned from classrooms to creator economy. That story is on page 9. At the bottom, NYSC releases 400,000 graduates into labor market. That story is on page 3. And lastly, at the bottom, students may face Black Christmas as insecurity crisis deepens. That story is on page 30 of the Saturday Independent. Pretty much all of the major headlines are the front page for the Saturday Independent.
I'll come back to matters of insecurity as we visit the Nation newspaper. That's the first big headline, but I'll save that one for last. At the top, however, INEC to PDP factions, put your house in order. Yeah, that's a mess. NAF C-130 aircraft released from Burkina Faso It lands in Ghana. You better release our plane. There are a couple of words there that are missing, the famous words of Samuel L. Jackson. But thank you for releasing it, or else we would have shown you. I'm not sure I'm speaking for all other Nigerians, maybe myself specifically. Tinubu threatens executive order, FAC reductions if governors withhold LG funds, and review police withdrawal order. Akpabio begs the president. Well, you want your orderlies back now, don't you? Big one for the nation. Defense security tops priority in 58.18 trillion naira 2026 budget. Of course, the president he's argued that this is rather expected because of the security implications that we have in the country currently. And of course, critics are, however, telling that whether you increase the spending, or does it translate to improved safety? Does it translate to equipment? Does it translate to, they're insisting that the outcomes are what the problem is, not the allocation. It could be this large, but what are the outcomes at the end? But we wait to see. I think that it's proactive, and I use that word I'm not very confident. But let's just say, let's look forward to seeing some real impact as the allocation for security has been increased. What else do we have, Judith?
Let's move away from the nation to our next paper that pulls up on the screen there. There we go. That's the weekend for trust, for the Daily Trust. 2026 budget, debt servicing to go up 27% of 58.18 trillion budget, a trillion naira budget. See what I mean? The numbers are quite conflicting. We see 58.18 and there's the 58.47 there as well. Right next to it, local government autonomy. Tinubu threatens governors with executive order. The story is on page 35 of the Daily Trust weekend. Right next to it, Dangote versus importers. Who wins the barrel war? That story is on page 22. Emergency powers under scrutiny. That one too, I think there's an op-ed there. It's going to be from the Daily Trust weekend there. Just a long read for you this weekend. Critically looking at emergency powers as the Senate has now moved to pass a law that now vests the powers of emergencies and to the president. And right there at the bottom, more insecurity issues. Survivors relieve Maitasin violence 45 years after. That story is on page 30 of the weekend.
Let me tell you about Maitasin.
Daily Trust.
This happened in 1980, yeah? And I think Mohammed Mawa was this very hardline Islamist who came in from Cameroon, settled in Kano State. And it is actually the precursor to any extremist culture or extremist ideology that you see here in Nigeria, whether it's Boko Haram, whether it's this Matawale. That's actually where all of this started in 1980, and it was a very bad instance for Nigerians, especially Nigerians in the north. It had its iterations in Gombe, Bauchi, Yola, and I think in Kaduna. These four states, and you have these same issues still propagating in these states, across the states. So if anybody wants to study exactly how religious extremism happens or started in Nigeria, that is the number one place or number one instance to actually go to. It's a very interesting instance. And all the way back in 1980, that's 45 years, and families are telling about what happened and how it scarred them and how it scarred communities that have not even healed from the tensions that it caused when it comes to religious rights. It's a very interesting story, and I think everybody should actually know about this. I think it'll give you the core. It'll give you an idea of exactly how religious extremism started in Nigeria. There should be an entire documentary about it.
Started or an uprising? Because there are also
various uprisings that spread across the north.
Right, because some would also argue that there were already pockets in schools of it, right? And especially when you look at 1963, just before the Civil War. When you look at Jos, not Jos, I think Kaduna now is a warring state in terms of religious extremism or Islamic extremism, and so one would say that there are pools and there are pockets of those schools, and he came in and pushed the envelope of what was possible in terms of radicalization and jihadist movement. So there's a lot of arguments.
This is his name is Mohammed Mawa, popularly called Maitasine, the one who damns on Islamic practices, and he was very extremist. He was a controversial Islamic preacher from Cameroon who settled in Kano, preached radical interpretations of Islam, rejected Western education. You can see where it's all coming from. Modern banking, rejected that, and also government authorities. It's a very interesting story, a very interesting look into how it all started in Nigeria. What else do we have? We have the Saturday Telegram, back from our interlude. Saturday Telegram here has APC governors to Tinubu fish out, prosecute politicians behind insecurity. Evident that this is happening. President insists on state police, forest guards, and LG autonomy. And then budget, defense, and security infrastructure take lion's share as Tinubu presents 58.18 trillion estimates to the National Assembly, and Eagles have lost fair factor in Africa, says Ulisa. Oh, come on, Ulisa. At least give us a little hope now, shouldn't you? I don't know. But then there is leadership crisis. INEC fails to reconcile warring PDP members. Is it INEC's PDP? I like to ask. But then again, this is bigger than we can actually think. I think with the attrition that's happening inside of the PDP, there might be absolutely nothing left. I saw the Senate president standing at a forum where he was talking about congratulating the APC for attracting 45 members from the Senate who when he met, there were 50 before, and now there's only 5. And he congratulated the APC for actually being able to do this, and then says that he has mandated that the remaining 5 who are still whispering into his ears that they want to come over to the APC, that they be there just so that there's some sort of opposition. And I'm like, first of all, I wouldn't be telling that kind of a story in open.
Even the FBI will not beat such an information out of my body.
Yeah, that's very interesting, the dynamics in Nigerian politics and how it happens. But interesting. Let's see what 2027 is going to bring.
One thing that I know for certain is that there's no more tact, with these politicians
anymore. It's lost on Nigerian politicians.
They are now bold.
Finished.
And one of the things that stood out to me very recently was yesterday during the presentation of the appropriation bill, and when they presented the president and he was about to take out the podium, the band immediately started to play, of course, on your mandate, and you should have seen your senators.
That really
on your mandate, on your mandate. And then the band was, and I just sat down in the studio and I was watching them. I was like, whatever happened to the anthem? Whatever happened to the anthem?
That's the new anthem. Didn't we change it from recently?
We need to learn that song. After
on your mandate,
After
it might be your 2027 anthem. Never could tell.
But top 10.
We're joking, no. We're not.
Sorry,
no sedition or anything. Thank you very much, people, for joining us for a Saturday morning. Join me in welcoming back Judith from her sojourn, wherever it was that she went. But you're welcome back, Grand. Good conversation for today. Absolutely enjoyed every single one. Do join us again tomorrow, because that will be our second installment for a Sunday morning. Breakfast Extra here will return with great conversations and everything that you should project might happen during the festive week, as Christmas is for Thursday, isn't it?
Oh, gosh. I'll be working.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
It will be my first Christmas, so I'll be enjoying it.
Really? Your Christmasing?
Absolutely. First Christmas. Oh, yes.
With your family?
Not just me.
Okay. Do you have a Christmas tree up?
I haven't got to that part of the culture yet, so I'll just enjoy the essence.
Just start small with a wrist.
Start small. Start small. Community.
Or lights.
Lights, maybe.
The lights will be better.
Grand.
Lights,
So that's it for us for today. Join us tomorrow. We'll catch you guys then. Thank you. This still is Breakfast Extra.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.